Howdy, howdy. So it's kind of crazy to be here, but I have been a long-haul trucker, a cowboy, a beekeeper. I've worked tons of blue-collar jobs over the past decade, and I somehow managed to also find myself as a photographer and now director. And I've kind of zigzagged over the years back and forth between the two. And I ended up working on stories for the New York Times, Time Magazine, different brands, different companies. And it's funny because I feel like I ended up realizing that I never fully really spoke from my heart, from my blue-collar upbringing, and just those worlds. So in 2021, just before COVID, I actually decided to kind of leave all that behind temporarily. And I hit the road again and basically got in my semi-truck and spent that next year hauling all around the country during COVID. And it was the first time in my life as an artist and as a person where I really understood what drives me and what excites me as a creative. And it's storytelling. And I think even further than storytelling, it's just genuine human connection. And to kind of tie it into Nevada, I want to tell you guys a story that I think is the best representation of me as an artist and me as a person. I'll go back to 2014. It was my first year on the road trucking. I was in my early 20s. I didn't know what I was doing. I had just graduated art school in New York. I kind of thought I made a terrible decision. And I was driving through Nevada one night, and I started seeing signs for an alien-themed brothel and truck stop. Yeah, exactly. And so I'm like, this can't be real. And so I started seeing this, I saw the signs, every like 30 miles or so, because I'm coming south into the state. And sure enough, like 2 hours into driving, I see these glowing lights, and it's like, to me, as a dork, as a trucker, I'm like, oh my God, this is like the most beautiful thing ever. So I pull in, and again, I'm in my early 20s, like fresh from the East Coast, getting my first real experience of, the American West landscape, what it looks like, the feelings that I get from it. And so I pull into this truck stop, and I sit there, and I just stare at the brothel building. I've never been to a brothel, and I have no idea what goes on inside, besides what I've seen in movies and TV. And I'm like, all right, I want to go explore, because for some reason I'm getting excited by this feeling. And it's that childlike curiosity that I feel like it just reminds me of being, in the weirdest of ways, like 8 years old, running around in my dad's semi-trucks or whatever. And I sit there, and I'm too timid to go in. So I just kind of stare at this building, leave, never to go back again. And then fast forward, I move back to New York. I start working for the New York Times and Time Magazine and shooting these editorial stories. And I just can't stop thinking about that brothel. So in 2018, I go back to this brothel, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to work on this story about Nevada, because I'm so obsessed with the American lore, the Wild West, that I get feelings from this place. And so I go to the brothel. I end up getting permission from the then owner, Dennis Hoff, to photograph in the brothel. And so what turns into me going there for just a couple hours, I end up spending almost 5 days there. And they give me his suite in the back of the brothel to stay in. And it turns into this amazing experience where I'm waking up, making pancakes for the women that work there. We're talking about life. We're talking about what it's like to be a woman working in sex work, what America feels like in these blue-collar worlds that, myself included, don't fully understand unless you really go into it. And that that knocked me on my ass, because I was like, man, behind these closed doors are just these incredible stories. And so I shoot that. I end up not even publishing the work. I kind of just post it on my website. I still think about the brothel. I end up moving out west, and this is about a couple months ago. I finally find myself in this position where I'm making a pilot for a TV show about my life on the road as a trucker, and really telling American stories from the road. And I thought to myself, all right, what in a pilot episode, like if somebody watches this, is going to really encapsulate what drives me as a creative and as an artist and as a person? And I was like, man, I need to go back to Nevada and shoot the pilot, at least part of it, at that brothel. And so I go out scouting by myself for the couple weeks before we go into full production. And I go to the brothel. The classic, again, I ring the doorbell, end up talking to them for hours. They love the idea. Everything's set. I'm like, oh my God, this is all falling into place. Somehow I'm doing my first TV show pilot, and it's just, everything's flowing. And so a couple weeks later, we go back out, full 15-person crew, 5 days of shooting, barely any kind of budget to put this together. So I'm stressed about trying to put together a TV show, trying to make this all work, trying to make sure these people, especially the women, feel comfortable, because to me as a creative and as a man and an artist, I feel like these worlds are such a privilege to even be invited into, let alone share the stories. And so my crew is at a Denny's casino eating lunch, and my friend Cassie, who works the brothel, calls me and tells me that she had just found one of the girls, a good friend of hers, unconscious in her room, and it appeared that she hung herself. And this is like 2 hours into us needing to be there to shoot part of this TV show pilot. And as stressed as I was about putting the whole thing together and feeling like this is like a decade of my sacrifice riding on this TV show and those stresses, I just kind of dropped all of that. And I was like, you know what? I just want to be there for this person as a friend, someone I've known for a little bit of time, somebody that means a lot to me, because again, it's that privilege of being invited into their worlds. And so I said, look, don't even worry about the TV show. Like, we're still gonna come, we're gonna set up across the highway. I'm gonna make sure nobody bothers you guys because you're in this process of mourning. And I just went through this surreal experience that night of texting with her, seeing how the girls were doing, see how she was doing. We shot some, kind of like stoic B-roll of me at the truck stop, kind of separate from that. And I had a moment where I'm literally getting the shot and I'm recreating one of my photographs at this truck stop. And I'm so excited. And I look to my right, and there's a county coroner van backing up to the entrance of the brothel, which was like, to me, like, all right, unfortunately, this woman has passed away. And so it was just such a surreal experience where I feel like if I was any younger or less experienced or less committed to just, again, that childlike curiosity, I would have thought somehow that was, a chip on my shoulder for shooting this TV show or something. But instead, I kept, just in touch with her throughout the night, and sure enough, the next morning, she calls me and says, look, like, everyone's going through it here, but I want to make this work because you care. We want to tell our stories, and on top of that, we want to also honor this woman who just died. And so I was so fortunate where I got to sit down with a few of the women that work at the brothel and be on camera talking about, not only sex work and the taboos of that world, but like really like the heart of what makes all this tick, and male trauma healing, and just these aspects of blue collar life that I think a lot of people romanticize but don't fully understand. And so it was just a total privilege, and it goes back to this feeling for me of trusting that childlike curiosity as a creative, as a person. It's something that I think we need more of. And so I'm gonna leave you guys with kind of this thing. I feel like my mantra has kind of become America's not always beautiful, but God bless her. And I feel like that encapsulates not only being a storyteller, but also being there for each other, regardless of who you are, where you're from, what your story is. But I feel like that's what binds us all together. And so, if I can say anything to myself, to you guys, just through my work, it's that, I would say just get out there and trust your gut. If your gut tells you to go knock on a brothel door and you don't understand it, just go do it, because you never know what's gonna happen. And so again, it's a weird example when I think about it and I say it out loud to people, but I feel like it really does encapsulate who I am, where my work is going, what I don't understand, but trust in the process. And kind of in closing, I want to ask everybody that we just do our best to try and help bring each other together and help carry this country into the next phase. Thank you.